All right, folks, it's C Crew Sports coming at you here with ACC Coastal Division prediction. All right, let's get right into this. Not wasting any time here. Miami, look at this, 11-1. Hey, this is the best possible scenario for Miami in my mind, right? All of these teams' best possible scenario. So they play Florida to start the season, and if Miami wins versus Florida, I have them losing to the Gators. But if they win, they could be 12-0. I see potential losses for Miami here is Florida State. And then obviously the ACC Coastal is so competitive. They could lose like 3 or 4 games. And I don't see them being worse than 8-4. But, Pitt, Georgia Tech, I mean, those are tough games, and even Virginia Tech. But when you look at their schedule, man, they have a cake first week. It's always the last week that's hard for a lot of these teams that are not super dominant. So I got Miami and Clemson in the final. Second is Georgia Tech. Why did I put them clear up there? Well, they also have a very easy schedule, and they play Clemson, which is their toughest game of the year. But they lose that one, and they also lose to Georgia, which is their second toughest game of the year. But the only other loss I have is them losing to Miami. Georgia Tech can beat Pitt, Virginia Tech, Duke. They're going to smash North Carolina Tar Heels. But I got them at 9-3. And then third team in the Coastal Division is going to be Pitt. Now, Pittsburgh is annually pretty good, and they're beyond not a slouch team. Like, they're better than a team that is considered mediocre, in my mind. So, I've got them losing to Syracuse and Miami and UCF. Now, Pitt could actually win the Coastal Division if they beat Miami and do well against these other teams. With that said, I actually put Pitt, this is Pitt's worst case scenario as opposed to their best case scenario. Because when you look at the middle of the pack Coastal teams, Pitt's right there. They could be second, but they could also be fifth or sixth. And this year I have them right in the middle of everything. So if they beat Penn State, the rivalry game, we all know that's possible. We all know that UCF is possible to beat too, but UCF has been very good the last couple, 2 to 3 even years. So yeah, got them at 7-5. I mean, that's fair, right? It's fair. Virginia Tech coming in at 6-6, but the difference is, if you look at, let's just go ahead and forward up to, because there's nothing really interesting to talk about there. Let's look at Duke, right? Duke plays Alabama, so that's the reason why they're 5-7 and not 6-6. So if you look at these three teams that we just looked at, including Duke, they could all be interchangeable. Like, put them in a bag, shake them up, and throw them out, and you're going to get a different answer every time. So, of wins and losses. So, the cool thing about Duke is that they play Alabama. Wouldn't that just be awesome if they beat Alabama, or even play them, like, really tough? Virginia, I'm sorry, Virginia people. I give you a 5-7 because, you play poop teams. You don't play anybody that's really awesome in non-conference. So that's going to give you a handful of wins this year, but you're definitely not going to have a great conference. And then last and least is the North Carolina Tar Heels. North Carolina is struggling so hard right now. They remind me of Tennessee in the SEC. They had the ability. The key word there is had the ability to be pretty good at one point in the last couple of years, but they have not capitalized on that. The only win I have them on paper is versus Mercer. Even a loss to App State. Even a loss to SEC non-competitive South Carolina in their first game of the year. But there are games like Wake Forest and Virginia that's possible for them to win. I don't see them winning the rivalry game at the end of the year versus NC State. And we're going to move on to the final standings and a few notes. Number one, I think Miami's going to have a resurgence to the AP top 10 and play Clemson in the final championship game for the ACC. So that would be pretty cool if Miami does really good this year. Like, this is my hopeful for the conference. And Georgia Tech, Pitt, and Virginia Tech will all be battling back and forth in the middle of the pack. It's like, okay, who gets the better bowl game here is going to be what they're looking for. And they're all going to want to take down Miami, right? And then one note about the ACC is that Notre Dame plays nearly half of their games against ACC opponents. And it's obviously because Notre Dame doesn't like to play the Big Ten because they're a little more competitive, within the conference than most other Power 5 teams. So they stay away from the Big Ten. Like last year, they played Northwestern, and it was a really good game. Thanks to good play calling from Notre Dame's offense, they ended up winning that game. But the ACC is a little more of a pancake division for Notre Dame to play, and I think that they're just going to make the ACC look silly this year, which, because the championship comes from the ACC, it might, to the media and to the people who don't follow too closely, it'll make Notre Dame look really good. So anyway, there it is. Hey, we're going to move on to the next conference, which will be the Big 12, coming up